How's it going, everyone? I am back with another video. This is going to be my week 8 recap video. Can't believe we're already on, actually, we're on week 9 now. This is my week 8 recap video, but whew, after this week, we'll be halfway done with the regular season. That's absolutely insane. This season has been nothing but pain for me for the most part, but it's still flown by. So, yeah, just kind of, hopefully, you guys know the process by now, but just kind of dive into my thoughts about each game. So yeah, I'll just dive straight in here. First game was the Thursday night game. It was Vikings Rams. So kind of had a gut feeling the Rams might win this game, and I ended up picking the Vikings, even though my gut was telling me Rams a little bit, and it backfired on me. Vikings drove right down the field, scored a touchdown. So did the Rams, and the Vikings did the same thing. And they were up 14-7. I was tied at half. It was 14-14. And then that third quarter, Rams had the lead at the end of it. And then late in the game, Vikings put together a drive, and I forget who it was, but one of the Vikings receivers dropped it. Probably would have hit a touchdown or gotten close to the goal line, and probably they would have ended up punching in the end zone there. They had to settle for a field goal, and the Rams ended up scoring. And then that was the Vikings were down 8, and they got stopped on. I forget exactly what happened, but they got stopped, I believe. And then yep, okay, now I'm remembering. So I don't remember. They got stopped, obviously, but I forget exactly how. It was a turnover on downs or whatever. But then, obviously, late in the game, a lot of people were talking about the face mask. The Sam Darnold got sacked for safety to ice the game, pretty much. But there should have been a face mask call on the Rams. Even Jones knew that Young, sorry. Even Byron Young kind of knew that he pulled the face mask Darnold. He put his hands on his helmet, like, oh my God, like, he knew that he pulled the face mask, but he got away with it, and the Vikings ended up winning. So that's I mean the Rams ended up. Sorry, I'm looking at my text here as I'm talking. The Rams ended up winning, so a lot of people are on the officials about that. There's a lot of controversial calls, a lot this week, and yeah, this was certainly one of them. This kind of set the tone. So it was a pretty even back and forth game. I think the Rams did outplay the Vikings and did deserve to win the game. I don't think the refs by any means gave the Rams game out, although there were a couple iffy calls that went in the Rams' favor. But I think the Rams outplayed them. Kupp and Puka Nacua look pretty good. Obviously, a boost to the Rams, get them back. They're 3-4 now. They're probably going to go on a run here. And that division, the NFC West, is wide open for the taking for anyone. Actually, the Cardinals are first right now, which is insane at 4-4. They had the tiebreak over the Niners because they obviously beat them a couple weeks ago. But yeah, this game here, yeah, Stafford threw a pick. It was kind of on a miscommunication with his receiver. He overthrew him a little bit. But yeah, I think the Rams outplayed the Vikings. Darnold played a pretty good game. Rushing, they didn't really have too much going. The Vikings. Jefferson had a really hot start, kind of faded as the game went on, but got a little bit more involved late. Vikings defense has kind of been declining the past 2 weeks. They got torched by the Lions. They kind of got torched in this game. The Rams are moving the ball up and down the fields. The Vikings defense maybe come back down to earth a little bit, but I think the Vikings will be fine. Also, they lost Darisaw for the year on a play where they were backed up at like their 5 yard line, own 5 yard line, and they just ran the ball to chew clock, get to the half, and Darisaw got hurt and he's out for the year. I think it was a torn ACL. So obviously that's a shitty way to lose one of your top line, the top lineman on your team for the year. So that sucks for the Vikings. But oh yeah, Kyren Williams, he is getting a heavy workload this season. Pretty good game from him. He had a touchdown catch. Yeah, Puka went off. Kupp had a good game, had a big catch late to help drain the clock, even though he went out of bounds and saved the Vikings like 40 seconds at the end of the game there. But yeah, this is a pretty even game. Not concerned about the Vikings, though. I think they'll be fine. Rams, I think, are going to start picking it up, though. Um, oh, this is kind of an interesting game. So I think the Packers outplayed the Jags in this game, and they were kind of in control, but the Jags had a portion of this game where it looked like they might steal it. Especially when Jordan Love got hurt again. I think he might even play this week, so I don't think it's obviously if he plays this week, it's not too severe. But it looked kind of concerning at first. He could like barely even walk. That was kind of scary. But I mentioned my predictions, my picks video for week 8 that I could see the Jags win this game. I think it could be closer than people think. I picked the Packers, and it kind of played out that way. The Jags were kind of neck and neck with the Packers right there. They even had the lead one point. It was when Love got hurt, the Jags ended up scoring a touchdown in their following drive, if I remember right. And they had the lead. I'm like, I had the Packers in a money line parlay. So I'm like, oh my God, like, of course, the Jags are gonna win because, and then Malik Cunningham or well, not Malik Cunningham. I always freaking say Malik Cunningham, Malik Willis. I mean, I'm just so used to Malik Cunningham from the Patriots. Well, not that he was with us for long, but Malik Willis came in, got the job done. He had a couple nice scrambles. Josh Jacobs, 25 carries. That's insane. Tucker Kraft has been coming alive. Dobbs has been coming alive too. The Packers defense played not the greatest game. The Jags had a pretty efficient offensive day, really good passing day, 1 yard shy of 300. And well, Lawrence didn't have over 300, but they had less pass yards because of the stacks. I think that's what it is. But yeah, Jordan Love, he had another. Jordan Love throws some bad picks. I don't remember. Trying to remember his pick. I don't remember his pick was like bad. It was on him, or I forget exactly what his pick was. But yeah, Lawrence played pretty solid. The Packers were up 10 late, and the Jags ended up tying it. Evan Ingram had an insane touchdown catch, but Malik Willis. All right, there we go. I got the Malik right. Malik Willis ended up. The Jags had I don't know if it was blown coverage, but someone was wide. I forget who was wide open. I think it was one of the Packers tight ends was wide open. I think it was Tucker Kraft maybe. And that pretty much iced the game. They ended up getting in field goal range, got the walk-off field goal as time expired. But oh yeah, Tank Bigsby, pretty good game. He's been having a really good couple games here. Obviously against us, he killed us running the ball in London there. Patriots, I mean. Brian Thomas has been a stud. Um, yeah, the also Christian Kirk's out for the year. That sucks the Jags. And I think Brian Thomas is out. I think a couple weeks is what the report said. I don't exactly remember 100%, but I think it was a couple weeks. But yeah, I think the Packers outplayed the Jags. It's kind of fairly close, even though it honestly the way the game was going, I kind of thought the Jags were ended up stealing it. Packers kind of due for a loss. Their defense has been balling out. They're kind of due for a slip up. Jags, they've been bad, but they have the trap team ability. They can beat any team, even though they're not that great. They get a lot of talent. They can just turn it on at the snap of a finger. They just haven't really been able to do it this season. So it was kind of a trap game, but the Packers ended up winning. Was a little nervous throughout the game, but a pretty even game in this one. And yeah, I do think the Packers deserve to win this game though. So good for the Packers. Jags are lose this one, and then injuries piling up. Just Jesus. Poor Jags. Cardinals, Dolphins. This is another interesting game. So it looked like the Dolphins were going to win this game. They had control of the game pretty much the whole time. They had the lead. Their defense was playing fairly well. And then after the Dolphins had a botched snap that resulted in a safety, and that ended up biting them at the end. Cardinals ended up, they scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. They got a walk-off field goal with Chad Ryland. That's his second straight walk-off field goal. I kind of wish he could have done that with us and the Patriots, but that's okay. That's okay. He was a big reason we ended up getting Drake May when he missed the field goal to send the game to OT against the Giants last year. But well, we didn't give him too many opportunities either, because their offense was so terrible. But Kyler played pretty good in this game. Kind of a slow start. Yeah, it looked like the Dolphins may win this game like fairly, like maybe like 10 plus. It was 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. Then the slow start for the Cardinals offense. Dolphins defense has kind of been sneaky, even though they've been absolutely killed with injuries this season. Yeah, Devon Achane had a pretty good game. Yeah, he almost had 100 rush yards, 3 yards shy. Tua he looked okay. A lot of short passing, I noticed. He had a scramble that he slid. The crowd went wild. Yeah, Tyreek had he played pretty good. Waddle played okay. Yeah, Achane was their second leading receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr. had a couple big catches. Yeah, he had 6 catches for 111 yards. He had a clutch catch on fourth down late in the fourth quarter. They didn't really get too much going in the run game, the Cardinals. Yeah, this is a pretty even game here. Just looking at the stats, it shows that too. Very even. That safety, I think, was just a big difference in this game. Kind of swung some momentum in the Cardinals' direction. I thought that the Dolphins' defense was going to end up stopping the Cardinals, leave some time on the clock, and Tua was going to end up being the hero, get the game-winning drive at the end. That ended up not happening, obviously. But yeah, this is a pretty even game. Cardinals are 4-4. They've been a sleeper team, very inconsistent. Even in this game, started out kind of slow, then they kind of turned it on as the game went on. But yeah, they look good one week, then bad, then good. But they're just a hard team to read. Dolphins are 2-5. Obviously, that's not good. Most people, I think, expect them to win this game with Tua back. And I don't think their like season's over or anything. I think they could still string together a couple wins, contend for the postseason. But obviously, you do not want to be at 2-5. And I think they have a rough schedule coming up too. So, oh boy, not good for the Dolphins. The Cardinals first in the division. Big win for them in that one. Here we go. Haha, my team. So I was very pleasantly surprised we won this game. We were up 7-0. Our offense was playing good. Drake May was looking pretty good. And then Drake May got hurt, and then Brissett came in. I'm like, yep, all right, well, we're going to lose this one. We had a chance, and now Brissett, I don't think, is going to be good enough to win this game. Brissett probably played his best game of the year. Just looking at his stat line, it's obviously not great, but he had a couple big throws late in the game. That 3rd and 10 with the free blitzer the Jets sent. He had a nice pass to Booty. And then when we got that touchdown on 3rd and goal, they overturned it. We were at the we need a couple inches to punch it in. I'm like, we're gonna get stopped short, and it's just gonna be another excruciatingly painful loss. But we ended up getting it in. I'm like, oh my God. Then I'm like, all right, well, Rodgers is probably gonna somehow find a way to get into field goal range. But then we ended up getting the 2-point conversion. I'm like, okay, here we go. And yeah, the Jets got to, I think, around like midfield or like the 40 or something like that. And like they're 45, 50, somewhere around there. But time ended up expiring. We ended up winning. So yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised. We play the Titans this week too, so that's another winnable game for us. Rodgers he played solid. Jets had a couple nice drives. Breece Hall, pretty good rushing day. I'm assuming this is Braylon Allen. I don't know why it doesn't say his name there. Yeah, Garrett Wilson's kind of been picking it up a bit as of late. Adams, okay game, not an well, 54 yards. That's a solid game, but not like a vintage Devontae game. Christian Gonzalez like locked him up when he was on him. Pretty sure, if reading off the stats, if I remember right. They had a nice play. It was a 3rd and 1. They play faked it, and Gonzalez ended up, I think he batted the pass down. It was a pretty good, or he had really tight coverage on the play. That was a really good play. Um, yeah, Drake made a couple nice scrambles. That touchdown scramble was really good. Stevenson, not a lot of rush yards, but he had 2 touchdowns. He also caught that 2-point conversion. Booty, I mentioned, had that nice catch. Hunter Henry had a couple nice catches too. He had a one on 2nd and 10 he caught. That was pretty good. Tyquan Thornton showed up for once. He had a 3rd and 9, I think it was. He ended up converting. But yeah, a lot of people are saying the Jets season's hopeless. I don't want to say optimistic. 'Cause I'm not like rooting for them. They're obviously a division rival, but I think the Jets still could. And I talked about it in my article I uploaded to my website about for the Jets Texans game later tonight, Thursday night game. But I still think the Jets can turn their season around. I think they have enough talent, and I think they played teams tough. They've been right there. They just gotta end up winning. Then obviously it's much easier said than done. And it's obviously easy for me to say just sitting at my desk here. But I think they're gonna be able to turn their season around. So will they? I don't know. But I think it could start tonight if they end up being the Texans. That's a good way to start or turn your season around. But yeah, very, very pleasantly surprised we ended up winning this game. I couldn't really celebrate. I was so pissed off because I would have 2 of my parlays would have hit if the Ravens ended up beating the Browns. And I'll talk about that game when I get to it. But the Ravens missed so many friggin' opportunities in that game. I've had nothing but shit for luck with betting, so I was infuriated the Ravens lost. So I wasn't even like super ecstatic and celebrating my team winning. I was so pissed off, but very pleasantly surprised that we ended up winning this game. Yeah, the Jets honestly, I like just looking at this. I from these standpoints here, the stat lines here, they outplayed us, and yeah, honestly, well, also it doesn't help. Zerline missed a field goal and an extra point. He definitely missed an extra point. Yeah, and he missed a field goal. I think he missed a field goal. Let me see here. Um, yeah, he missed a field goal. So yeah, that obviously helped us. Caught a break there. Pretty close even time possession. Penalties, we've kind of been racking them up lately. But yeah, pretty even games. But the Jets probably should have ended up winning. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. But very pleasantly surprised my team ended up winning that. And we had the Titans, as I mentioned, can win that game too. Oh, speaking of the Ravens Browns. So yes, this game, I've said it in all my picks videos. The Browns are a trap team. They have enough talent to just kind of like the Jags. They can just win any given game at any point in time. And of course, when I bet on the Browns twice this year, I bet them to lose to the Jags week 2. They won, and then I had money on the Ravens in this game, and of course they win. So, yep, that describes my betting with the my betting success with the NFL season so far in a nutshell. But the Ravens have games like these where kind of just trap games. How do I describe it? They have games like this they should win and they end up losing. Like narrowly, it's usually close most of the time, but they end up losing to an inferior team that they should end up beating. Obviously, a lot of talk about Jameis Winston. He balled out in this one. He already has more 300-yard passing games than Deshaun Watson did. So everyone's just saying Watson was the problem now that the Browns have a competent QB. Maybe they can make some noise. But yeah, the Browns defense played fairly good in this game. Ravens obviously they put up 24. That's a pretty respectable, pretty solid amount of points there. But uh yeah, through portions of this game, they trying to figure out a word. Through like portions of this game, the Ravens offense is kind of having a tough time. The Ravens defense really had a rough game. The Browns offense kind of moving up and down the field. They really did not get stopped that much. They ended up stripping Winston of the ball, and the Ravens ended up getting a touchdown to take a 10-6 lead at the half. But yeah, to the missed opportunities the Ravens had. So 4th and 1 early in the game, they get stuffed, turn it over on downs. Bateman had that big drop on, I think it was 3rd and 14. Justin Tucker missed a field goal. And then, oh yeah, then the Browns, the drive that they got the touchdown on to eventually win the game. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton had like probably the easiest pick he's going to see in his career, and he dropped it. He had it and dropped it. If he catches that, I win my 2 parlays, but of course he drops it because I bet on them, the Ravens. But yeah, Winston obviously looked really good. Um, Chubb got a pretty good workload in this one. Cedric Tillman's been having a good game since last week, since Winston went in there. Tillman's looked good. Elijah Moore, pretty good game. Pretty balanced passing game from the Browns. This is kind of like the Browns offense we expected to see this year. Yeah, the Browns defense played oh yeah, I think Koromo is the I know one of their big guys ended up getting hurt. Not like defensive line, but like big time defensive players got hurt. I think it was yeah, I think it was Koromoa or Koromoa rather. Just I forget exactly, but he ended up getting hurt. That sucks, obviously. Hopefully he ends up being okay. Lamar had a pretty good game. Late in the game, the Ravens went like 90 something yards on like 5 plays or something. And even when they scored, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I have a bad feeling the Browns just going to drive right down the field and get a field goal to win the game. They ended up passing, which they were on like right on the border of field goal range. So I understand why they were, but Ravens, I think only had one. No, the Ravens, I don't think at any time, or no, they had one timeout. So I'm like, they could have, if they were a couple yards closer, they could have ran the clock out probably. But I honestly thought the Ravens had a pretty good chance at winning. Even after that, they had a pretty good drive, very good time managing drive. They ended up getting the ball to like the 30, and then they kind of stalled out a bit, like 2 plays in a row. A couple plays prior to that, to get the ball to that point, it was like really efficient. Really, they swiped the ball quick, used their timeout well. See, that was a pretty good drive. I thought they might steal it at the end. Zay Flowers had a pretty big game. Mark Andrews caught a touchdown. He's been getting a bit more involved. Obviously, very quiet start to the year. Bateman probably saw that drop. Also, I think Aguilar had a 3rd and 6 drop. That was another opportunity. He was open and he dropped it on a crossing route, if I remember right. So that, and then that sucks. And I think as soon as Bateman dropped that pass, they were like, "Yep, that's what's we're trading for Deontay John. We need a receiver. We're going to trade for Deontay Johnson." So yeah, one of the stats here, fairly even. Obviously, the Ravens had less passing yards, and it kind of evens out with rushing yards. Yeah, pretty even game here. 3rd downs, the Ravens really struggled. Only 2 of 10, 0-2 on 4th down. That's a killer. Pretty even time of session, pretty close to penalties. 19 more yards here for the Browns, the amount of penalties. But yeah, pretty even game. Just really wish the friggin' Ravens ended up winning. Because I needed them to for my parlay, but that's okay. This was an interesting game. So the Bengals, it looked like they were on track to win this game. Their opening drive was like an eternity. They ended up scoring, and it was like a 10-minute opening drive, I think, something like that, which it kind of gives the Eagles a taste of their own medicine because friggin' they usually have long ass drives, the short passing. They get to 3rd down, then they end up converting. It's just the same cycle over and over again, like repeatedly. So kind of nice to get the Eagles to taste their own medicine there. It was 10-10 at the half. Burrow had a couple big throws. He had a 3rd and 22. He improvised, kind of dumped it off to Mike Gesicki, who's kind of having a sneaky underrated season. He ended up converting. Yeah, Burrow pretty solid in this game. His pick wasn't really his fault. It was just an insane play. The Eagles got a deflection right into another one of their DB's hands. Hurts played a really good game. This is probably his best game of the year. The second half, the Eagles just really, really turned it on. I think the Bengals moved the ball a bit better than the score indicates. They got stopped on fourth down. It was like a fourth and one. They ran like a screen to chase. It was kind of looked like a similar play, maybe the same play that they ran against us, the Patriots week one, where they went for it on fourth down. They ran like a screen to chase, and we stuffed it out. And the Eagles did the same thing. I don't know if it was the same play, but it looked very similar. Yeah, Mike Gesicki, he had an insane grab too. It was like a 3rd and 10, or 3rd and 7, or 3rd and 9. I think he did insane, like one-handed grab. They kept mentioning it was National Tight Ends Day. All the broadcasts they mentioned about 400 times. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Saquon went off. I figured he'd have a big game. I kind of predicted that in my picks video. Hurts didn't really do too much rushing. Got 3 3B touchdowns off of the tush push when he does that. AJ Brown played pretty good. He always is consistent when he's healthy. Devontae Smith played pretty good. He had an insane deep catch on the touchdown there. This is the Eagles probably their most complete game on it since probably dating back to last year. They have just not been the same after that 49ers debacle, but this game they looked like the team full of talent, like that has that elite team capability that a lot of us, maybe not a lot of us, but a good amount of people expected them to be, and they had the ability to be. Bengals are 3-5. I'm still not panicking. Of course, I'm a little bit concerned. They play the Raiders this week, so they should be able to win that game, I imagine. But Burrow played good. Chase played solid. He had a touchdown catch. That was the Bengals' opening drive, their long-ass opening drive. They got pretty much nothing in the run game. They kind of been struggling to run the ball most of the year. As I mentioned, Burrow played solid. Yeah, the Eagles definitely deserve to win this game. Bengals defense back to being bad for the most part. Even early in the game when the Eagles weren't scoring, I think they were just kind of stalling out from penalties, so their own doing, kind of stalling their drives out there. Yeah, the Eagles deserve to win this game. They outplayed the Bengals, I think, at least to me. Bengals only had one penalty for 3 yards. Yeah, pretty interesting game. The Eagles really complete game. Looks like they may have finally got out of that. What's the word for it? I don't know what's a good word for it. Funk is what I've seen some people kind of talked about with that. Not dating back to that Niners game is what I mean. They just have not been the same team since then. But looks like they may have, at least to this game, they broke out of that. But yeah, Bengals not too concerned. Eagles look like they're sending it at the right time. Bengals, I think, will end up being fine. I'm going to say optimistic with them. Colts Texans. So this was Colts game. A little bit less offense than their week one matchup. So again, the Texans defense kind of similar to the week one matchup. They not shut the Colts down, but they played the Colts like pretty well defensively most of the game. And early on, the Texans had a busted coverage, and the Josh Downs ended up getting a touchdown out of it. And yeah, the Colts scored 10 in the first quarter. So then after that, they only scored 10 through 3 quarters. Richardson, obviously a big story. He's 10 of 32. He has really struggled with his completion percentage. I don't know his exact completion percentage. I think I saw somewhere it was down like in the 40s, like 49% or something like that. Obviously, a big story is he got benched for Flacco, which makes the Colts better right now. But even with Richardson struggling to complete the ball, I mean the passes they're 3 points behind the Texans, who have Super Bowl aspirations. Another big story is obviously they lost Diggs, the Texans. Their offense has kind of been, it's kind of a little noticeable that they're showing a bit without Nico Collins out there. Obviously, that's kind of expected when your wide receiver one's out for the year, but now Diggs is out too. So you your top two receivers, or not Collins is out for the year. Did I just say he's out for the year? I don't remember, but he's not out for the year. But Diggs is out for the year, so obviously that's going to be a problem. But once Collins comes back, I think they'll end up being fine. I think now they could get their offense will be good enough to be able to win some games with until Collins gets back, which I assume is soon. But I think the Texans' offense will be fine without Diggs. Obviously they're probably going to miss him at points throughout the year, and it's going to be like, oh, if they had Diggs, they could have converted this, or they would have won this game. Stuff like that. I'm sure will be said, but I think guys will end up stepping up for the Texans. They're pretty deep on the wide receiver depth chart there. But yeah, Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good game. Josh Downs had a really good game. He had an insane catch late that looked like a touchdown, but he was down at the one. The Colts ended up punching it in there. But yeah, Richardson, obviously the play, he subbed out because he was tired. That obviously is a big red flag. It was third and forever, so they weren't going to convert it anyway, most likely. But yeah, they had Flacco come in. He just handed the ball off. I'm pretty sure on a draw, if I remember right. So it's not much so the result that mattered, but it's just the fact that he was tired and asked to come out of the game. Like you can't do that as the starting franchise quarterback. But yeah, late in the game, he also scrambled instead of getting out of bounds. He kind of just dove for a couple extra yards, kept the clock running late when they needed it to stop there. They ended up getting to like the 50, but they couldn't get a Hail Mary off because the Texans got some pressure, sacked Richardson, and then he pitched it back, and there's a couple pitches, if I remember right. The Texans ended up just sitting on the ball to win the game. There's a sequence late where the Texans were in the Colts red zone, and they ran a toss, and they bobbled it, Mixon bobbled it, and the Colts ended up getting it, and they ran it for a friggin' touchdown. And I swear to God, whenever one good thing happens to a team I'm pulling for, another good team or another good thing happens to another team I'm pulling for, and vice versa. When one bad thing happens, another bad thing happens to both teams. And as soon as I think it was Justin Tucker missed a field goal, and then or something bad happened where it looked like the Ravens, like their chances of winning, like severely dropped, and then the Colts ended up getting that touchdown. I'm like, oh my friggin' God. I remember it was 2022, week 17. The Bucs were playing the Panthers, big division game. Whoever won was probably going to win the division. And Tom Brady Tom Brady threw a massive touchdown to Mike Evans. And then they cut to the Patriots Dolphins, and we ended up picking off Teddy Bridgewater. I'm like, I can't even make this up. I'm like, it's friggin' insane. Like, as soon as one good thing happens to a team, I'm pulling for the same thing, or vice versa if something bad happens. But anyway, let's get too off topic there. Where was I on this game? Yeah, so that sequence, but they ended up rolling them down. Texans I think the Colts ended up getting a holding or something that kind of ruined that drive. Texans able to chew a lot of clock. They punted late, and then as I was talking about Richardson there, got it to 50. Weren't able to do anything with it, get the Hail Mary off. Stroud played pretty good. Bounce back game from the Packers game last week. Mixon's been balling out this season. Jesus Christ, someone just freaking ran the buzzer. My apartment that just scared the shit out of me. That buzzer is so loud. But Mixon's been playing. I think it's just a delivery. I'll just leave it at the door. But Joe Mixon's been playing pretty good. He's been going off. Really good game in this one. Diggs, obviously he was having a good game until he got hurt. Obviously that sucks to the Texans. Dalton Schultz, a couple nice catches. Tank Dell's gonna have to step up with Diggs hurt. He's kind of been inconsistent. John Mechie's a guy that can step up. Xavier Hutchinson can step up. Robert Woods kind of sneaky underrated. Yeah, pretty balanced game here. Texans outplayed them. I do think they deserve to win the game, but Colts have the ability to kind of beat any team, I think. They're a very sneaky, kind of underrated team, and they also have the ability to just put up a shitter. They're kind of a weird team, but they're a good team. Um, yeah, I think the Texans are the ones get 5 sacks in Richardson. That's a problem. Pretty fairly even game, but I Texans were ahead by kind of couple slim margins in a lot of these categories, and I think that's pretty telling of this game. The Texans definitely deserve to win this one. Um, Texans are probably going to win their division anyway, but they just swept the Colts, so that's probably their toughest comp. It is their toughest competition in the division. So yeah, good for the Texans. They probably just went a long way getting that division on lockdown. Titans Lions. So this was kind of a weird game. So the Titans, their offense was getting it going early. They were going up and down the field. They scored 14 in the first half, and in the second half, their offense, like most of the season, just stalled out. The Lions, Jared Goff had 85 passing yards, and he had 3 touchdowns still. I mean, they put up 52 points, and the Titans' defense is pretty solid. They started off the game well, too. They sacked Goff. I think they had 2 sacks on Goff, really, that forced 2 Lions punts, if I remember right. Um, yeah, something like that. And yeah, I mean, the Lions only had 225 yards of total offense, and they put up 52. 7 of it was off a kick return or a punt return that you can see here. Titans ended up outgaining them. They nearly, or not, well, sort of nearly doubled them in yards there. Yeah, 61 pass yards. Oh my God, putting the sacks there. Rush yards pretty even. Titans almost 6 yards per play. That just looking at these stats, you would think the Titans end up probably winning this game. They had more first downs. Just a really, if you just look at these stats here, it's like no way the Lions end up winning this game by this big of a margin, but they did. Uh, yeah, 2 fumbles lost. That was big for the Titans there in a bad way. 8 penalties, 60 yards. Obviously, that's not good. Yeah, Mason Rudolph kind of like a Jameis Winston like Buck stat line early in the game. He was like moving the ball up and down the field, but he was throwing picks too. Obviously, not a great stat line, but not abysmal either. Pollard played fairly good, fairly well. They got Ridley involved. He had a massive first quarter. Obviously, he wasn't happy. He hasn't been happy with the Titans offense, how much he's getting involved, or rather his lack of getting involved. That was big for him to have a big game here. A lot of that came in the first quarter. He kind of dropped off as the game went on, but so the Titans offense. Yeah, Gibbs had a lot of big rushes in this one. Uh, Porta had a nice touchdown catch. Actually, I think he was kind of wide open, but uh, I want to say the Lions are in a trick play to like their tight end to get a touchdown or something, but it wasn't Laporta or was yeah Brock Wright did get a touchdown. I can't remember if it was like a trick play or just a standard play, but Amon-Ra there was a nice designed play action. He was wide open. He ended up getting a touchdown. But the Lions are a game like this where you're playing a shitty Titans team. You're at home. Titans are a bad team, but they have the ability to be like fairly competitive. Uh, it's a sign of a good team to just take care of business, blow out the inferior team at home. So good for the Lions. They are probably the best team in football right now, even though the Chiefs are undefeated. The Lions have been more dominant than the Chiefs this year. They get a big game against the Packers. I just, whew, that's going to be a good game. Yeah, 52 is insane. Oof, just 52. They're putting up 40. They're in the 30s. Their offense it's kind of started out slow the first couple weeks, and now it's just absolutely exploded. Another like historical game where Goff only had 3 incompletions. They put up 52, just friggin' insane. There's a bunch of stats that Jared Goff is less incompletions than they have touchdowns over the past couple weeks. Just insane. Just insane. The Lions are obviously trending in the right direction. The Titans, on the other hand, are obviously not. They're probably just going to be sellers at the deadline. Okay. Falcons Bucks. So this is kind of an interesting game. The Bucks got more offense than I expected them to in this one. They really they yeah, didn't really get too much going in the run game. Pass it, not that they've been better running the ball this year, but still haven't been great. Baker had a kind of a mixed game, 330, 3 touchdowns. That's good. Solid completion percentage, but he had 2 picks. He's been mounting his picks up lately too, stacking them up. Cade Otton has really been looking good the past couple weeks. He's probably going to get more involved with Evans still out a couple weeks and Godwin out for the year. Bucks might try to trade for a wide receiver by the deadline. Um, yeah, Kyle Pitts had a touchdown, and then his second touchdown here, you can see a lot of controversy. Might have been a fumble. Honestly, it could have gone either way, but to me, it probably did look like a fumble. I had Pitts on one of my fantasy teams, so I feared they would have ruled it a fumble. But I'm like, wow, I catch a break, and then I ended up losing that game anyway to my dad of all people, of course. But Kirk Cousins played a really good game. I threw 5 touchdowns against the Bucks in the Thursday night game, I think. So he's still 9 touchdowns against the Bucks in 2 games. He threw for 500 plus yards against them the first time. So he's just friggin' decimated their defense. Bucks defense has been absolutely horrible the past couple weeks, which is not very typical under Todd Bowles, and at least under his Bucks tenure. Even with the Jets, he was having his defense playing well for the most part. I think they were number 1 in 2015, if I remember right. At least for a portion of the year. Yeah, I mentioned Pitts played pretty good. This might be his. Is this his first multi-touchdown game? I want to say no, but it might be. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Mooney played pretty good. Uh, yeah, not too much going in the run game, but they stuck with it. But yeah, pretty even game, honestly. Very at the end there when the Falcons missed that field goal, I honestly thought the Bucs might steal it. They might end up getting a touchdown to win the game, but Falcons ended up holding on, and obviously 2 close games. The Falcons ended up winning. The Bucs are definitely the biggest competition the Falcons have for the division, so they just swept them. So obviously that's going to go a long way at the end of the year there for them. I don't think the Bucs are like, I'm not going to say the Bucs are going to make the postseason, but they're 4-4 now. They're obviously dealing with injuries. Baker's kind of been throwing some picks lately, mounting those up, as I mentioned. Their defense has been awful. He had Godwin out for the year, Evans out a couple more weeks. So the Bucs are kind of in dangerous territory here. But I do think they still could end up sneaking into the playoffs, maybe at 9-8 again, maybe get something like that. 10-7 maybe, being a bit more optimistic, but who knows? Falcons, I definitely think are going to end up going on to win the division, but still, they're only a. That felt good. I smacked my hand against my desk. But well, as I mentioned, they swept the Bucs, but so they have the tiebreaker over them, but still only 1 game ahead of them in the win column there. So who knows? The Bucs could still end up winning that division. Might just click off that game. Where are we? Here we go. Yeah, pretty even game here. Pretty close to a lot of these stats. Bucs had a decent amount of more passing yards. They had more total yards. Looking at these stats here, probably would ask how the Bucs didn't win this game. I would probably say turnovers. They had 3 and the Falcons had 0. So that was probably a big turning point in that game, all the turnovers, but pretty even game there. That was an entertaining one to watch. Bucs still get a good amount of offense in without their top 2 guys, so if they can keep that up, their defense cleans it up. They should, again, as I mentioned, be able to be okay for the rest of the year. Here we go. Saints Chargers. So this was a really weird game, kind of an ugly game. Defensive game to start out. It was 2-5 at one point. I'm like, yeah, that describes this game pretty well. The Saints ended up getting a safety. Chargers hit a bad snap, or their punter dropped snap. They ended up just batting it out of bounds there. Saints were able to move the ball through portions of this game. They ended up benching Rattler and had Hayner come in the game, who's actually looked pretty good in his very limited action. So they should. Well, I think Derek Carr might play this week, but if he doesn't, they should. I would strongly consider starting Jake Hayner there. He played pretty good. Chargers defense has been balling out this year, but now the Chargers offense has been getting it going. They played pretty well in the passing game against the Cardinals last week. They obviously came up short, but Herbert had over 300 yards. They had a couple nice pass plays. And Herbert had another really good passing day. He had 279, 2 touchdowns. Ladd McConkey had a really good game, 2 touchdowns, 111 yards. Josh Palmer only 2 catches, but he had 72 yards. But so the Chargers passing game is coming alive. Maybe they're figuring something out there. Uh, Not a great day running the ball for the Chargers, but not horrible. Uh, Kamara had a pretty good rushing day. Only 67 yards, and he had a couple nice plays where he broke some tackles and a nice couple receptions too. Obviously, a lot of check downs for us. You get Rattler and Hayner in there, but not so much Hayner because he came in the game late. They're going to need to swing the ball down the field. The Saints had their opportunities in this one. Chargers defense ended up holding. They ended up just mounting some points up, made it too hard to overcome for the Saints. So, yeah, the Saints defense played okay in this one. Obviously, they're just getting killed with injuries, but obviously very close total yards here. Very even in these four categories. Pretty even here. Chargers got more first downs. Neither team did good and great on third down. Chargers marginally better there. A pretty even game from a stats perspective. Neither team turned the ball over, so that's obviously good. Saints 66 yards. The penalty is not great. Chargers okay there. But yeah, this game kind of went as I expected. Kind of expected to be a low scoring, grinded out defensive game, but the Chargers probably end up putting up a, somewhere in like the low 20s, where the Saints just aren't going to be able to keep up with them with their quarterbacks and their injuries going against the Chargers defense. So yeah, this game probably went as most people expected. But Saints maybe got a little bit more offense, moved the ball a bit better than I expected, but the result was kind of what I was expecting, probably what most people were expecting there. Freaking throat is killing me here. Bills Seahawks. This was a really weird game. So early on, it looked like this is going to be a game that goes down to the wire, and the Seahawks just could not get out of their own way in this one. The fourth and goal, Geno slipped. They had I forget exactly if it was like another end zone sequence or a fourth down play, but they ended up not converting where they should have. I forget exactly what happened, but I want to say they had another fourth down or something like that early where they didn't convert. They should have. Coleman had a really good game for the Bills in this one. It had a nice touchdown grab early on. Shakir's had a pretty good game. Josh Allen had a pretty good game through his first pick of the year. James Cook had a really good game running the ball. Good old Mitch Trubisky coming in there for the kneel downs. But at least I think he came in for the kneel downs. That's what I'm gonna assume those stats are from. Yeah, the Bills defense obviously a big story. They've been playing pretty well for a majority of the year. Obviously a couple exceptions, most notably that Ravens game. But they obviously balled out in this one. Again, the Seahawks, it was also like super, it was like downpouring, or not maybe not downpouring, it was like super, it was like raining pretty heavy, so the ball was slippery. Josh Allen had a play where he was scrambling, just lost the ball, and I think the Bills ended up getting on top of it. But the yeah, the Bills definitely deserved to win this game. They, I think, kind of thoroughly outplayed the Seahawks. And yeah, I think the Bills definitely outplayed the Seahawks. Obviously, that the score indicates that stats do as well. Yeah, the Seahawks defense, I mean, their offense really showed on third down. The Seahawks defense obviously didn't play very good either. But early on, even after that goal line debacle the Seahawks had, they ended up getting a pick on Josh Allen. They were set up again. I think that's the that fourth down play where Geno Smith ended up slipping. So Seahawks just could not get out of their own way. It looked like it was going to be closer early on. It kind of 14-3 at half. Obviously, that's still a game. Then the Bills just pulled away. Seahawks ended up getting a touchdown late. And yeah, the Bills just kind of dominated this game. Geno, I didn't play fantastic. He had a pick. It was on a, I want to say it was on a screen pass. He kind of just was a miscommunication, or he just missed through it. Something, I forget exactly what happened. I think it was on a screen pass. JSN had a pretty solid receiving day, but they had pretty much zero run game. But yeah, just not much going for the Seahawks. They've lost 3 out of their last 4. So or 3 out of their last 5 rather. So uh, or no, 3 out of what the hell am I saying? 3 out of their last 4. So yeah, they started out 3-0. Or no, they've lost 4 out of Jesus Christ, my head is all over the place. They've lost 4 out of their last 5. There we go. Because they've gone, yeah, okay. They started off 3-0. They've gone 1-4 since then. That Falcons game looked like they were, looking like the first couple weeks of the year. That Seahawks team, and yeah, just not a good performance in this one. Bills usually have a couple games like this where most people expect a close game. They end up winning by a good margin, end up putting together a really dominating performance. They usually have a couple games like that in the regular season. So good for them in that aspect. Bills playing pretty good right now. They most people expect them to be good, obviously. Seahawks kind of reeling again, as I mentioned, kind of lost on a losing streak besides the Falcons game. So I think Seahawks wind up being fine. They'll probably be around 500 most of the year, contend for a 7 seed, probably around there at the end of the year still. Maybe they sneak in, who knows. Bills, obviously, barring injuries, should make the playoffs. But yeah, even though they usually have a mid-season skid the past couple years, but who knows? But good game for the Bills, obviously not a good game for the Seahawks in that one. Um, oh boy. Bears Commanders, obviously, so a lot of talk about this game. Obviously, the Hail Mary everyone's talking about at the end there. So obviously that's a big play everyone's talking about. The Commanders deserve to win this game. They all played the Bears for about 90% of this, probably 80, 90% of this game. The Bears offense just did absolutely nothing for a majority of this game. Then they ended up getting a touchdown in the third quarter. Swift just completely just turned it on the Jets. Just Commanders DBs are missing them. He ended up getting a touchdown there, and then after that, they kind of got the momentum. They had a drive late in the game where they were about to take the lead. It was third and goal, and they ran a fullback dive type play to their offensive or one of their linemen there, and it resulted in a fumble and a turnover. Like, why would Shane Waldron at a critical point in the game ever call something like that on a third down? And then the Bears ended up scoring at the end there with like 25 seconds left. I think they got the 2-point version. Everyone thought it was over. Probably thought the Bears were going to steal this one. Bears defense kind of got the ball moved on them for a good part of the game, but they were able to hold the Commanders to field goals. Yeah, Commanders also, there was a couple questionable calls that went against the Commanders. I was talking about the refs were kind of a big factor this week in when I was talking about the Vikings Rams game. So yeah. Zach Ertz, it looked like he had a touchdown. I don't know if it should have been a touchdown or not, but a lot of people said it should have, got overturned, got knocked out at the last second there. Caleb Williams didn't play a great game. There was one point in the game he only had like 4 completions, like halfway through the third quarter. They ended up looking good late, the Bears offense. They just did nothing a majority of the game. Swift obviously had a really good game that he kind of changed the momentum. Jane Daniels played pretty solid. Brian Robinson, pretty solid. McLaurin, pretty good game. He had a nice deep catch late. Yeah, the Commanders outplayed. They almost had 500 yards of offense. And they only put up 18 points up to a good portion of that. It's coming off the Hail Mary there. But so yeah, they had about around 430 yards of offense without the Hail Mary and only 12 points. So they obviously 430 yards, you're probably going to want to score more than 12 points. But so the Bears defense doing their job, holding them to field goals there. Bears defense is so good this season. Even dating back to last season, the back half of the year, they played really good. So yeah, that's obviously good for the Bears. Some people are saying this might, at least that I'm seeing, they're saying that even the Bears season, this is going to be like what ends up screwing them over at the end. It's going to be like just a deflating morale move. I think the Bears will be fine. I know if I kind of like the Bears, so staying optimistic. Maybe it just pisses the Bears off. They lost a game like this. Even again, they should have lost originally because the Commanders, I think, did outplay them. That's a pretty fair assessment. I think most people would say that. And they ended up, if they would have won this, they would have stole it. But the Commanders ended up stealing it with a Hail Mary that gets perfectly tipped into Noah Brown's hands. Obviously, you want to bat the ball down. So that they ended up batting it backwards right into Noah Brown. So not great technique from the Bears there. Matty Eberflus talked about that in his press conference a bit. Yeah, I kind of talked about it here. Talked about those guys' stats. Yeah, I talked about these guys' stats. But yeah, the Commanders all played, then they deserved to win this game. Obviously, the way they won it was a bit lucky, but they definitely did deserve to win this game. The Bears, we keep talking about here, would have stole the game. They ended up holding on to win. Obviously, it didn't happen. So, yeah, the Commanders 6-2. I mean, not many people would have expected that, but yeah, they're obviously ascending, have a really good shot at winning the division, their division, the NFC's. Bears, obviously, a loss really hurts them if they want to contend in their division. I think the Packers and the Lions are just above the Bears anyway, so I don't think they would have won their division. I still think the Bears have a really good chance of getting in as a wild card around 10-7, something like that. So I don't think the Bears season is going to spiral out of control. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about the I'm pretty sure it was Stevenson was kind of laughing at mocking Commanders fans, and he's the one that tipped the pass Noah Brown the Hail Mary, so he's getting trolled. Bad karma there. He apologizing on Twitter about it. So yeah, this is a pretty kind of an interesting game the way it played out, but Commanders definitely deserved to win this game, even though it was kind of in lucky fashion, obviously. Chiefs Raiders. So this game kind of went as I expected too. I talked about it in my picks video how the Raiders I think could play the Chiefs close, and they could be more competitive than people think, and that's exactly kind of what happened. The Chiefs went right down the field, scored, so did the Raiders. I'm like, okay. Raiders ended up getting a field goal. They had a 10-7 lead. Then they were trailing 17-10 at half. Chiefs got a touchdown at the end of the half there. Then the Raiders, the third quarter, they were able to work the ball down to the red zone there. It looks like they might score. Myers did a nice catch. They had a nice punt return on the from their return man, and they had to settle for field goal. And then Mahomes threw a pick. It looks, and the Raiders were, I think, at the 3-yard line, and they ended up getting stopped. And that was pretty much the game. How not like the game was over there, of course, but that was kind of the turning point where it's like, yep, all right, the Chiefs are probably going to end up winning in the game there. Chiefs ended up scoring on oh, sorry, I'm getting a sorry, I'm getting a text here. All right, sorry. Well, I'm getting an award at my work apparently. Wow. All right, well that's pretty neat. But what was I just saying? What the hell was I just saying? Oh yes. So obviously that defensive stuff for the Chiefs, obviously their defense has been balling out this season. Big story of the year. Mahomes has thrown a pick in like 9 straight games. So obviously that's rough. They've been able to win, obviously. D-Hop obviously didn't play too much in this game, still learning the playbook and such and the scheme fitting in there, but he had their first third down version, D Hop ended up catching. So obviously he had another catch in the game. I think he only had two. Yeah. Mahomes, I think, actually had a pretty efficient day. That pick wasn't really his fault. Got batted down at the line. Hunt's been getting a big workload. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that when Pacheco comes back. Kelsey had a really good game on National Tight Ends Day. They mentioned it so many friggin' times. They were talking about earlier. Um, yeah, after that goal line stop, though, the Chiefs ended up. I think they had a long drive. They ended up settling for a field goal. Then they Minshew turned the ball over. Then the Chiefs ended up scoring. It was kind of game after that. Raiders ended up scoring. Then they went for an onside and they ended up not getting it, although it was close if I remember right. And of course, for the Chiefs, the Raiders scored like 2:01 left, or like 2:03 left, I think, and the onside perfectly took 3 seconds off, so they could have just kneeled the ball out instead of having to run some plays, and it would have obviously been a miracle if the Raiders ended up getting the ball back and scoring, but they would have had very little time left. Had to probably around like 15 seconds going the length of the field to get a Hail Mary off. So obviously it would have been a miracle. Of course, the Chiefs, the clock perfectly ends up balancing in their favor. Friggin' hate the Chiefs. Minshew played a fairly good game. He actually had a pretty good game. That as soon the commentator was like, "Oh, Minshew just," he said something about he's been playing Bladders and turned the ball over, and then as soon as he says that, like 2 seconds later, Minshew fumbles the friggin' ball. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, zero rush game for the Raiders. 14 carries for 15 yards. That's obviously an issue. Brock Bowers looked pretty good. He's looked good all year. Myers looked good. Had a couple nice catches. That sideline catch I mentioned, the third down there, set them at the red zone. Yeah, the Raiders defense has kind of been sneaky underrated this year. And yeah, just kind of went as I expected. Chiefs kind of grind out another not pretty win, but their offense is able to move the ball fairly well. Their defense makes a couple of stops. Kind of been typical Chiefs win this season. And the Raiders, kind of another close loss. They're just heading in the wrong direction. Chiefs kind of keep winning ugly, but they keep winning, unfortunately. Panthers, sorry, I gotta go soon. I gotta speed this video up. Jesus. Okay, Panthers, Broncos. So the Panthers, again, the opening drive looked good. Bryce Young had a nice touchdown throw there. And then the Broncos ended up scoring 28 straight, and Panthers ended up getting a garbage time touchdown. It's actually a nice touchdown. Pretty solid drive at the end of the game there, even though it was garbage time. The game was over. But after that first drive, the Broncos defense just really shut down the Panthers. The Broncos offense has been getting it going lately. They've been able to move the ball fairly efficiently, been putting up a good amount of points here. Obviously, the Panthers defense has really been struggling, so it doesn't say too much, I don't think, especially at home. But Bo Nix had a really good game. He's been getting it going. Uh, Sutton, I'm trying to remember when the hell Sutton attempted it. It was obviously on a trick play, but and Riley Dixon, what the hell? Oh, I think Riley Dixon, the Broncos ended up fake punting it, or faked the field goal. It's going to be like a 60-yarder or something like that. They ended up getting stuffed. Sutton had a pretty good game. Obviously, bounce back game when he had 0 targets against the Raiders. I mean, the Saints on Thursday a couple weeks ago was when he's on. I just started for my fantasy team. He gets 0 targets. But yeah, pretty. Bryce Young, he looked. I mean, this is probably his best performance of the year. Was his best performance of the year, even though he didn't play great. Pretty okay, not great, kind of just mid game. Chuba Hubbard had a fairly efficient game. Yeah, Jalen Coker had a pretty good game. Xavier Legette had a drop. Bryce Young kind of placed on him perfectly. I think, if I'm remembering right, at least. He did have that touchdown, though. I think that was their first touchdown. Yeah, stats here, the Broncos definitely outplayed the Panthers, deserved to win this game. Broncos taking care of business. They're 5-3. They're a sneaky team. They're in the playoffs right now, I'm pretty sure. So that's interesting. Not many people would have expected that, but they definitely outplayed Panthers pretty much all the categories here. Although they did lose 2 fumbles, so to clean that up a little bit, but it kind of canceled out with the 2 picks there. But Bryce Young's going to be getting the start again, so this week, so we'll see how that goes. I forget who they play, but didn't see that Bryce Young is going to get the start. Um, but yeah, this game kind of went as I expected, pretty much. All right, 2 games. Gonna kind of try to go through these quickly here. Okay, Cowboys Niners. So kind of another weird game. So the Niners in the first half, they really were kind of beating themselves. They talked about it during the after the game there, and Kyle Shanahan mentioned it too at the halftime interview there. As he was going into the tunnel. They were moving the ball. They just kept killing themselves. They had a drop on 4th down with Debo, and the Purdy threw it a little bit behind him. He was wide open. They kept getting holding calls. Uh, yeah, they had a 3-0 lead at the end of the first. Their opening drive was pretty good. Debo had a nice play down the sideline. Cowboys ended up scoring 10 straight, and it's like, okay, the Cowboys not playing great, but they could be in a position to steal this game. The Niners ended up getting a field goal. It was 10-6 at the half. And then the third quarter, the Niners just simply cleaned up what they were doing wrong, and they scored 21 straight. And yeah, they were moving up down the field at will, just scoring. Their offense looked really good. Their defense was clicking. Their defense played pretty well this game. And then the fourth quarter came, and kind of weird. The Niners ended up allowing 2 touchdowns late. It was a 6-point game, and then they punted. The Cowboys got the ball back, the chance to take the lead late, and it's like, oh my God, are the friggin' Cowboys seriously going to pull this game off? Niners defense ended up forcing a 3-and-out, and the Cowboys went 4-4. They didn't get it. Niners ended up just Guerrero ended up sliding down. They ended up just kneeling to win the game there. But Purdy played pretty well. Nice bounce back game from the bad game against the Chiefs. He had Guerrero played well because Jordan Mason got hurt, which I almost bet his over, which I did against the Seahawks, and he was going to hit it and then got hurt, and they didn't void it. He played 1 snap in the second half. But yeah, obviously he got hurt, so good thing I didn't bet his over. Hopefully he's okay. But Guerrero's been pretty good in the little limited action he's got. Kittle obviously went off. Debo had a good game. Ricky Pearsall, he's been getting involved. I see a really good story on his part. So good to see him get involved. He's probably gonna have to step up with Ayuk out for the year. Yeah, Niners defense played very well. Dak played not. He didn't really. Just looking at these stats, he played solid, but 2 of the touchdowns both his touchdowns came late, and it wasn't necessarily garbage time, but it was Niners were probably playing a prevent like defense, and they end up taking advantage of it, but it was just kind of blown coverages, just Niners not executing very well. He had 2 picks prior to that. Again, nothing really going in the run game. Zeke had like 1 nice rush earlier when the Cowboys had the momentum. It's like, oh, like here can the Cowboys end up getting a touchdown. So I think that's his first touchdown of the year. CeeDee Lamb had a really good game. He had that blown coverage touchdown late. It's like a verticals concept, it looked like. Yeah, let's look at the stats here. Yeah, I think the Niners definitely outplayed them. They deserve to win this game. So looking at these stats here. Yeah, I mean penalties. I mentioned the Niners had to clean that up. They did in the second half, more so the third quarter. I don't think they got many penalties in the fourth, but third quarter they really just cleaned it up. But yeah, Niners definitely deserve to win this game. They're 4-4. I think they're going to be able to sneak into the playoffs. I shouldn't say sneak. I think they'll be able to get into the playoffs still, probably around like 10-7, 11-6, something like that. But I really don't think they're going to be able to beat like the elite teams like the Packers or the Lions. Their defense has actually been playing kind of underratedly well, but they just are just getting killed with injuries all over the place. Cowboys will probably end up sneaking into the playoffs at probably 10-7, 9-8, just because of the Cowboys, and even though they're not the greatest version of the Cowboys, they've been over the past couple years, just a lesser team, at least on paper. Obviously, their defense is missing Parsons and DeMarcus Warren. So obviously that's going to be a boost, and they come back. Their defense played well for portions of this game, and they when they needed to stop the Niners late to get the ball back, they did. They played very well in the first half too, but again, a big part of that was the Niners uh, kind of just beating themselves with penalties. I don't mean to talk like a million miles an hour. Just going to head out in like 10, 15 minutes here. But so I'm trying to wrap it up quick. But yeah, the Cowboys will probably end up sneaking in still. People are losing faith. I wasn't really too high on the Cowboys going into the year. I think I predicted them at 11-6, so that's still doable. I think 10-7, 9-8. I feel fairly good with 10-7 without looking at their schedule, but yeah, I maybe 9-8. I don't know. But Cowboys will probably end up sneaking in. Niners, I think, get into. Niners, hopefully they can just stockpile some wins here. Usually around this part of the year is when they end up turning it on and getting some wins stacked together. Okay, last game here, Monday night game. So we had Giants Steelers. So a lot more offense than I expected in this game. The first half, there was a stat, it was like 400 something combined yards of offense between the two teams, and there was only 18 total points on the board, just all field goals. Steelers open drive, they scored a touchdown overturned from a penalty. Giants had a touchdown overturned from a penalty. I think the Steelers penalty was legitimate. I don't remember 100% off the top of my head, but the Giants one was kind of controversial, at least that I remember. If I'm remembering right. Russell Wilson looked really good. He two good games for Russell Wilson this one. Najee Harris looked really good. Pickens looked good. Russell Wilson and his deep passes have really been connecting. Van Jefferson had a nice deep pass on the sideline late in the game. I think it was at the end of the third quarter, the last play of the third quarter. I hit a bet on a scoreless quarter, and it looked like it was going to end up hitting. And then the Steelers ended up getting a touchdown with Tavon Austin there. So obviously that I was a little bit angry at that, but whatever. I'm used to getting screwed over at this point with my bets. Giants moved the ball well through portions of this game. Tyrone Tracy had a really good game. He ended up getting hurt late. But Giants moved the ball well, couldn't punch it in the end zone. That was kind of the same with the Steelers until they ended up getting that touchdown. They had a touchdown in the third quarter, that punt return. They had one in the fourth quarter, too. Yeah, Danny Dimes didn't really play too great. Their opening drive looked pretty good. They were able to move the ball through portions, as I just said, but they just couldn't find the end zone there. It's just kind of been an issue for them all season. Tyrone Tracy played really good. Uh, yeah, Slayton, pretty good game. Neighbors, pretty consistent, like he's been most of this year. Good game. Yeah, Najee had a good game. I kind of talked about these guys a bit. Really good fit on the Steelers, Russell Wilson so far. Um, Total, yeah, all these stats, I think the Steelers definitely outplayed the Giants, deserved to win this game. To me, it was kind of never an maybe it was kind of a 50-50 at half, or not a 50-50, probably like a 60-40 confidence split for me at halftime that the Steelers were going to end up winning. Although they do kind of have a tendency to lose games like this against inferior teams, kind of a trap game. Mike Tomlin has history of kind of losing games like this, but they ended up holding on. Late in the game, they were up 11. Giants put together a drive, cut it to 8, and then Russell Wilson turned the ball over, and then Daniel Jones immediately returned the favor, turned it over, strip sacked TJ Watt. They should have doubled him with Singletary instead of having Singletary run a route. Troy Aikman talked about that. He was like, for the life of me, I don't know why you're not helping out your tackle here. So he said something like that. It was pretty funny. And then Giants had a chance at the end there to tie it. They were backed up at their goal line. They ended up getting to like midfield, then like the 40. And then Daniel Jones had like two receivers open on checkdowns pretty much. And he misfired the pass and it got picked off. Like, oh, Daniel Jones, that's a pretty good Daniel Jones, or not a good pass, but a pass that describes Daniel Jones's Giants tenure and NFL career pretty well. Even though I don't think I think Daniel Jones is not good. He's bad, but I don't think he's as terrible as some people think. And I hate the Giants. I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm not biased in that metric by any regard. But yeah, Steelers defense has been really good. Their offense has been picking it up with the Russell Wilson. Very controversial when obviously Justin Fields went to the bench and they started Russell Wilson. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. My mind's all over the place right now. But their offense looked better. It's small sample size, only 2 games. The Giants defense has been playing really well. They put up 26, really respectable, good amount of points, 426 total yards. That's good. Kind of went through these stats already, but Steelers outplayed them and pretty much all the categories here. All the categories in these 4, but yeah, they outplayed them pretty much in nearly every category. So they definitely deserve to win this game. Giants 2-6. They're kind of a sneaky trap team. Steelers 6-2. I don't know how many people expected that. Kind of expected them to float around 500, knock off a couple good teams, but I think I had them at 7-10. So obviously that's not looking too good. And I knew that was probably not too likely since Mike Tomlin always finds out a way to squeak above at least at 500. Obviously, he hasn't had a losing season in his career. So yeah, Steelers at 6-2. They're looking pretty good though. They're in good shape. All right, so I do kind of have to wrap things up here and get going so I don't fall too far behind. But this is a pretty good week of football. Couple or a lot of competitive games this week, fun, entertaining games. A lot of games that went down to the wire. So pretty good game, good week of football. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap the video up here. So thank you guys for watching, for tuning in, and I will be back with another video, my week 9 picks video on probably Saturday, I would imagine. I try to get them out earlier, but I'm just so slammed with my schedule that I just don't have time to. So I apologize that they're only coming out usually like a day before the games happen, but yeah, I'm sorry. I try. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap the video up here. Thank you guys for watching, and take it easy. Thank you guys for tuning in.